There has been a lot of talk about the possibility of the BRICS countries eventually surpassing the G7 as the most powerful economic group in the world. The BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, have become some of the most important players in the world economy. Their combined GDP is about $23.5 trillion, and they are home to more than 3.5 billion people. Many experts think that as they continue to grow and develop, they will eventually have more economic power than the G7, which is a group of the world's 7 richest and most developed countries. What do you guys think about this? This possible change in the balance of economic power around the world will have big effects on a lot of different groups, from business leaders and investors to lawmakers and political leaders. It is especially worrying for NATO, which is a political and military union for 30 North American and European countries that has been led by the G7 nations for a long time. In this video, we will look at why BRICS has become more important and what this means for the global economy and foreign relations, especially from NATO's point of view. Jim O'Neill, a Goldman Sachs economist at the time, came up with the term BRICS in 2001. He thought that the group of developing economies would become big players in the world economy in the years to come. At the time, only Brazil, Russia, India, and China were part of the group. In 2010, South Africa was asked to join, making it the 5th member. Since then, the BRICS countries have grown and developed quickly. This is partly because they have a lot of people and a lot of natural resources. With a GDP of over $14 trillion and a fast-growing middle class, China in particular has become an economic giant. India has also come a long way in the past few years. It now has a GDP of more than $3 trillion and a rising tech sector. So why do so many professionals predict that BRICS will soon overtake the G7 as the most influential economic bloc on the planet? Over 3.5 billion people, or almost half of the world's population, live in the BRICS countries. This demographic edge is a big reason why the group's economic power and impact are getting stronger and stronger. Because they have so many people, the BRICS countries have access to a huge pool of human resources which can help their businesses grow and progress. Because the BRICS countries have a lot of people, they also have a huge market for goods and services. As the middle class in these countries grows, so does their spending power. This gives businesses and investors new chances to make money. For example, China's middle class is projected to have 1.2 billion people by 2030, which would make it the biggest buying market in the world. Not only that, but the amazing economic growth rates of the BRICS countries are one of the main reasons why they are becoming more important in the world economy. In terms of economic growth, the BRICS countries have done better than many other emerging and developed economies, including the G7, over the past few decades. BRICS countries are also becoming more important in the world economy because they are becoming more connected to each other and the rest of the world. As these countries have grown and developed, their economies and governments have become more linked. One of the best examples of this kind of unity is how the BRICS group came to be. Since 2006, when they first met, the BRICS countries have worked to strengthen their economic and political ties. They have set up monthly meetings and working groups to work on things like trade, money, and energy. They have also set up a number of development banks, such as the New Development Bank and the Contingent Reserve Arrangement, which provide funds for building and development projects. The growing economic power of the BRICS countries has also given them more political power on the world stage. As their economies have grown, the BRICS countries have tried to assert themselves in international political systems and question the traditional powers in areas like trade, development, and global governance. One of the most important ways that the BRICS countries have tried to stand out is by taking part in foreign groups like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. The BRICS countries have tried to get these groups to change because they don't do enough to support the needs of developing countries, they say. As the BRICS countries continue to push themselves on the world stage, traditional powers are worried about what this could mean for the security and balance of power around the world. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization NATO is especially worried about the growing economic and political power of China and Russia, which are both BRICS countries. NATO is a military and political union made up of 30 North American and European countries. It was set up after World War II to protect all of them from the Soviet Union. NATO has grown in size and scope since the end of the Cold War, but it still sees Russia as a possible threat to its security. The BRICS countries' rising economic and political power is a big change that is changing the balance of power around the world. Traditional powers are worried about this change, but it also opens up chances for the West and the BRICS countries to work together and talk more.